Hello everyone and welcome to this card review for Rise of the Shadows. Next up we have the Paladin class, the last of our defender classes that are defending us from, or defending Dalaran from the League of Evil. And the dragon that we have, the dragon aspect that we have for Paladin that's going to be defending them is Nazari. Nazari is a 10 mana 4/12 dragon, legendary, and reads Battle Cry, restore both heroes to full health. So with Nazari and all of the cards going forward, we're going to be rating them on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being trash and 5 being meta-defining. If you want to find out more details on everything below, you can check out in the description if you're watching on YouTube, or you can check back on the neutrals video as well, because we had all the information there. So Nazari, restoring both health to both heroes is, I think, most of the time far more beneficial to you if you're putting this in your deck. The idea here is obviously that you're going to be some kind of control paladin. You're going to be much slower. This is a card that can help finalize your stabilization, I would say, against aggro decks. Like if you're getting to turn 10, you probably have to have stabilized in a way, but this is the way that stops like the hunter from eking you down with the hero power, or them from killing you with their Leroy burst combos later in the game. And so I think Nazari is not an irrelevant card in those decks, but I do have to wonder if in most of those decks Shivala is not enough as it is, as a 7 mana, with the 7/5 Rush Divine Shield that Shivala offers. She actually has more of an impact on the board and gives you the immediate heal as well. So I'm not really sure we need to have Nazari to kind of do that stuff as well. I feel like it's probably just enough to have Shivala. So I think Nazari then might only really see play in the decks where you actually care about the fact that Nazari is a dragon. That is something that we're going to see. There is a bit of dragon synergy for paladins in this expansion. But overall, I think that Nazari is probably only really a 2. It might see some fringe play. I don't really want to call Nazari trash, although I think I've been way too kind to a lot of these cards and really should be rating them as more 1s. But overall, yeah, I just don't really see Nazari as the big dragon we want in our decks anyway. Next, we have Commander Rissa. Commander Rissa is a 3 mana 4/3 legendary with your secrets trigger twice. So I think that as a preface to this, I think Secret Paladin is looking quite good, partly because it's one of the neutral cards we spoke about earlier, the 2 mana 2/3 that becomes a 3/4 if you control a secret. That card looks fairly solid, as well as some of the cards that we're going to see in Paladin now that synergize with the secrets. So I think that Commander Rissa is going to see play. I think Commander Rissa is like a 3 because I don't think Commander Rissa is the key to playing that deck. I think Commander Rissa is a very powerful tool for that deck, but is not like, it's not the reason you go into the secret deck. Like the Bellringer Sentry stuff and some of the new secret synergy stuff, I think is more of a reason to go into that deck. But I think that Commander Rissa is going to be a powerful tool in that deck. So it's like, a high 3. It's powerful in that deck, but it's not enough to kind of push you into that archetype by itself or herself. Next, we have Dragon Speaker. Dragon Speaker is a 5 mana 3/5 epic minion. Battle Cry, give all dragons in your hand +3/+3. So hand buff synergy only for dragons. Yes, there's a card, Bronze Herald, that we'll see coming up that synergizes with it, but hand buff sucks. 5 mana 3/5 sucks. I don't really see the payoff for buffing some dragons in your hand. Obviously, this is meant for like a slow paladin deck. I'm going to give this a 1. Next, we have Duel. Duel is a 5 mana epic spell. Summon a minion from each player's deck. They fight. So immediate thought is like, ooh, how can I make big paladin work, right? Now, one of the big minions that this would work well with is Shivala, because it Shivala is going to gain you the life immediately and has a decent chance of winning the duel. Dealing 7 damage and having the Divine Shield means there's a decent chance of surviving the duel and staying on the board. It's like a good way to tutor out Shivala in that sense, but I'm not sure we really need to 100% do that in our like Shivala decks. I feel like, it also has the bonus cost of reducing Shivala if you had some other way to kind of, put it back in your deck as well and then draw it later. I think Baleful Banker is rotating, but I might be mistaken. If it isn't, then this is kind of good for the Holy Wrath deck if you are like playing only Shivala and the Holy Wrath and the Baleful Bankers as minions, but that's not actually that likely. Oh no, Baleful Banker isn't actually rotating, sorry. I just double checked and it is Witchwood. So it should... So maybe there's some possibility for Duel in that deck, but I think most of the time Duel is just going to be a tech card. And tech cards we don't usually rate on the 1 to 5 scale. I think Duel is also actually useful when you want to pull out your opponent's key minions, like their own Malygos. You can duel, and then you can also try and use some removal. Not that Paladin has an awful lot of hard removal, which is an issue. But if you're, let's say, reducing the cost of your Shivala in your hand when you play duel, then you have a decent chance of killing that minion with Shivala after it's also traded with your minion. So I don't really think duel is going to be particularly good. I would kind of give it a 2 or even a 1 if I wasn't just giving it the tech card rating. But I think it's not even necessarily that great as a tech card either. So I think I'm just going to give duel a 2. There are some notable exceptions that are quite good for you to get with duel in Paladin if you're mostly focused on your minions, like Tyrion. Tyrion's obviously very good. It's got the Divine Shield. It gives you a taunt on the board. Cheats it out. You get the weapon when Tyrion dies. Tyrion is like probably one of the best cases that I can think of in Paladin. So maybe there's some application there, but I don't really think we can... I don't know if we can really make a big Paladin work, because I don't think Paladin really has all the tools to get you there without having to play some minions at some point earlier in the game. Next we have Call to Adventure. Call to Adventure is a 3-mana rare spell. Draw the lowest cost minion from your deck. Give it +2/+2. So this is kind of what we would call a tutor effect, where you draw a very specific card from your deck. Tutor effects are generally quite powerful. Drawing the lowest cost minion has a lower... It puts a little bit more restrictions on how you can build your deck. But there's actually a lot of pretty decent low-cost minions that you could get. Like, if you Call to Adventure into the 1/3 magnetic mech, you can basically turn that into a 3/5 buff to play on a mech on the board. So it's kind of like a 3/5 Blessing of Kings in that way. Righteous Protector, the 1-mana 1/1 Divine Shield Taunt is rotating out. Otherwise, that could have been fairly powerful. I think, there are some ideas where like you can fetch the really cheap minions from your deck and make them work. There is obviously the other synergy with Immortal Prelate, where you can get that out early so that you can start buffing it, and then it gets back in your deck, and you can kind of go infinite like that, and you get your Prelate. But it's a very Pogo Hopper-esque game plan, which I don't think is really the way we're going to see Call to Adventure used. I think Call to Adventure is something we could see a 1 of or 2 of in a couple decks. I think I'm going to give it a 3 because I actually think the card is really not all that bad. But it doesn't really... It's not enough to force you into very specific decks, and I don't think it makes the Immortal Prelate deck good. I don't know if the Immortal Prelate stuff is good enough. But I think that there's actually enough reasonable other applications to Call to Adventure that it's not so bad. The big problem is we're paying 3 mana to draw 1 card. And yes, that card's getting +2/+2. But that's... Now, if we think about it, that's hand buff. Hand buff sucks. So we need to find ways that we can draw cards that have immediate effects. So these need to be like 1-drops that can have immediate effects, like the the magnetic mech dude, or other ways to kind of make that work. And that's the biggest problem. In a deck where you have 2 of the 1/3, you're going to have max 1 call to adventure, because it can be a bit dead if you draw it later on. Yeah, I don't know. And another one of the good synergies, if you don't have anything before 5, you can draw your Ziliax and then guaranteed play it on 5. And then you're getting a 5/4 lifesteal rush minion that can heal you back up after you've had to clearly lose the tempo to get to the stage of playing the Ziliax. But then, you might draw your Ziliax before your call to adventure, and then you got to ask what next is your call to adventure fetching. I mean, there's a couple things that it can synergize with in those kind of control decks. But yeah, I think there's a couple interesting things that call to adventure can do that kind of leaves it in the 3 zone for me. So yeah, I'm going to stick with the 3. Next, we have Mysterious Blade. Mysterious Blade is a 2-mana 2/2 rare weapon with Battle Cry. If you control a secret, gain +1 attack. So if you control the secret, this is a 2-mana 3/2 weapon. The question is how often you really want to play secrets on 1. But with the 2-mana 2/3 and this, you've got 2 very, very good payoffs for playing a secret on 1. Both that gain you the tempo you lose from maybe not playing a 1-drop and instead playing a secret. And if you consider the secret as something like Noble Sacrifice, then you're not really losing much anyway for playing it. Or Auto Defense Matrix into the 2/3 that becomes a 3/4 is very good as well. So I think there's actually a pretty good reason to play secrets on 1 and maybe even keep them in the mulligan. So I think Mysterious Blade is actually like one of those cards that really pushes the secret Paladin archetype. And I think it's already fairly reasonable now before the rotation. And afterwards, I think that Secret Paladin might be one of the main ways to go for Paladin. So I'm going to give Mysterious Blade a 4 because I think it's actually a key card in that deck. Next, we have Desperate Measures. Desperate Measures is a 1-mana a rare spell. It's a twin spell as well, and it reads Cast a random Paladin secret. So there's 7 secrets in Standard now. There's the new one, which we'll see coming up. Noble Sacrifice, Auto Defense Matrix, and Redemption. Those 4 are all fairly good to get. Then there's Hidden Wisdom, which is kind of bad. Eye for an Eye, which is kind of bad. And Repentance, which is pretty bad. So you're going like better than 50% chance to get a good secret. This is another way to reliably play secrets on 1 that are harder for your opponent to proc, which means you get your 3/2 weapon, you get your 3/4 2-drop. So it has synergy there. It's also the kind of card you don't mind keeping in your mulligan, whereas you'd probably want to mulligan away your secrets and then bring them out with your Bell Ringer Sentries instead. So I actually kind of like Desperate Measures. I really didn't think I would like it. The random secret is kind of annoying, but the thing with random secrets is it makes it harder for your opponent to play around as well, which is a good thing. So I think that Desperate Measures is actually going to get a 3 because I think it's pretty solid in the Secret Paladin deck. I don't really see it seeing much play else wise, but you also have to bear in mind, that deck loses Divine Favor, so it needs other ways of generating more resources, and Desperate Measures can at least get you 2 secrets for the price of having to draw only 1, which is important because drawing secrets sucks. Next up we have, I gave that a 4, yeah. No, 3, sorry for Desperate Measures. Next up we have Bronze Herald. Bronze Herald is a 3-mana 3/2 dragon. Death Rattle, add 2 4/4 dragons to your hand. So this is obviously how you're supposed to trigger your dragon synergies, which usually require you to put dragons in your hand. I like the design of this card. It's a dragon itself. You can play it out as a tempo play, even though a 3-mana 3/2 is pretty low tempo. And then you get more dragons in your hand afterwards to activate your other dragon effects. So I like that. I like the design. I just don't think Dragon Paladin is a thing. And I don't think that the payoff for playing this low tempo card is necessarily a thing. Obviously, one of the key cards in a Dragon Paladin deck would be Cathedral Gargoyle, which is still going to be in Standard. That's the 2 mana 2/2 that gains Divine Shield. If you have a does it also gain something else? I can't remember exactly. But that card is very good. And if Bronze Herald makes it reliable enough that you have a dragon in your hand to play the Cathedral Gargoyle on 2, you can kind of get away with the Bronze Herald on 3. So I think maybe that's enough to push a tempo dragon deck. As long as we're not playing that 5 mana dude that buffs the dragons in your hand, that seems like garbage. But if we have Cathedral Gargoyle and Bronze Herald, we have a 2-drop, a 3-drop, which we then can trade off and get one of our 4-drops. Because these 4/4 dragons do cost 4, by the way. So it at least allows us to keep our curve going, which is nice. Because if we're playing a tempo kind of mid-range deck, we want to make sure our curve is reliable. And Bronze Herald does help with that. So I'm going to give Bronze Herald a 2 because I'm not sure I believe in the Dragon Paladin deck. But I think it is a useful card in that deck. I don't think it's 100% necessary in that deck either. But I think it is probably one of the dragons that can help push you over the critical mass of dragons to make cards like Cathedral Gargoyle activate reliably. Next we have Lightforged Blessing. Lightforged Blessing is another twin spell. It's a 2 mana common spell that reads, give a friendly minion lifesteal. So giving a minion lifesteal is obviously something you would like to do in a control deck. It's a kind of a way of gaining life. It's a more repeatable way of gaining life than just a spell that gains you life directly. Problem is, you have to have a minion on the board, which is not often a common scenario for a control deck. Maybe you can do this with some like High Priest Thekal nonsense, where like you go down to 1 health and 29 armor, and then you heal back up, and then you can do it like that. But I just think there's probably better ways to do lifesteal stuff like that. So I'm just going to give Lightforged Blessing a 1. I think, the later it gets in the game, the better the lifesteal is, but the less chance you are to have a minion to actually necessarily get the lifesteal on. I mean, one of the reasons Ziliax is so good in control decks is because it gets to play, you get to play it right away, and that makes a pretty big difference. Hey, Bemi. Thanks a lot for the raid. Welcome to everyone from Bemi's stream. We're just going to keep going with this Paladin review, and then we can chat a bit more to the chat in a couple minutes. Let's see. What do we have left for Paladin? Never Surrender. This is the secret that we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. So Never Surrender, 1 mana, a common secret. When your opponent casts a spell, give your minions +2 health. So that's a pretty good effect. +2 health means that like if your opponent casts the spell, the +2 health can save them from AoE, a very, very powerful effect in a deck and a class where we want to kind of build a board and snowball that board. That's really always what Paladin has been about, and this is something that helps Paladin do that. And in the Secret Paladin deck in particular, we really want that to happen. Now, with cards like Commander Slissa, or wait, no, that's just a streamer. I totally forgot her name. But the 3 mana legendary that we were just talking about, with cards like that, Commander Rissa, with cards like that, if this triggers twice, that's even more powerful. Like, let's say you have Commander Rissa on the board, and then they play like you're playing a Paladin and they play like a Consecration. Well, actually, they're going to be causing your secret to trigger twice, which means that you're actually gaining more health than they're dealing damage with their Consecrations. So I think that that Never Surrender is actually just a pretty powerful secret, and it helps kind of swing the cards like Desperate Measures into a scenario where you have more good secrets than bad secrets. And that's pretty important because you want to have a reliable number of secrets to get all your secret activations off and all your cards that require secrets in play to trigger, like the weapon and the neutral 2/3. So I think it's pretty important for us to get a good secret, and I think that Blizzard have kind of delivered with Never Surrender. I think that this is definitely a card that's going to help Paladin quite a lot. So I'm going to give Paladin Never Surrender a 4. I think that this card is going to be very key to the Secret Paladin decks and is going to be very annoying to play around and to deal with those decks that kind of go a bit wide and have all these interesting synergies with the secrets, where you don't want to remove the minions with a spell because of Never Surrender, and you can't remove them by attacking them with your minions or weapons because of Noble Sacrifice and Auto Defense Matrix. And I think that's very key with Never Surrender, that it plays very, very well with those other two secrets that are pretty good. Okay, so overall, where does that leave Paladin? So I think the Secret Paladin is definitely looking like probably the best version of Paladin. It's going to be a probably fairly aggressive deck that is difficult for your opponents to play around. It's difficult for the other aggressive decks to trade into because of secrets like Noble Sacrifice and Auto Defense Matrix that are going to make it difficult. I think Paladin is losing a couple key cards that were very good in that deck in particular, like Righteous Protector, notably, and Call to Arms as well. I believe that's rotating. I'm pretty sure that's rotating too. So both of those cards are going to be a big loss to that deck, as well as Hydrologist, which is another way to give you secrets to synergize with your cards. So I think we're going to have to see exactly how that deck evolves, but I think there's still a lot of key cards like Bellringer Sentry, and some of the new secret cards are pretty interesting as well. So I think Secret Paladin should be pretty good. I can see these. A lot of the decks that they're kind of pushing are in two ways. They're pushing these very like Zooey, go wide decks, and a lot of the ones we've spoken about in Druid, Mage, even with all the summoning stuff, and Paladin, and then Warlock that we'll speak about a bit later. And then they're also pushing these very heavy control decks with like stuff like Nazari and the some of the other payoffs we'll see in the other classes, particularly Priest and Warlock, that have a lot of kind of heavy control stuff. So I think that they're trying to push the meta into more of that kind of old style that we saw like in the earlier days of Hearthstone, where we had like the aggro Izu type decks and the mid-range decks and the control decks, and that kind of trifecta, rather than the kind of combo decks and all the weird shenanigans we see these days. So I definitely feel like Blizzard have printed a lot more lower drops, and Paladin. The reason we're talking about this in Paladin is because the secrets and stuff are actually going to be a good counterbalance to that, and the weapon, the 2-mana weapon that gets buffed, that becomes a 3/2 weapon if you have a secret in play, is also going to be very powerful. So I think that Paladin is in a very good spot to take a very strong footing in the meta, even though it's pretty good right now, even though it's losing like Baku and Gen, which have been two cards that have been very, very powerful for Paladin. So overall, I think Paladin should be pretty fine. I think it could be up there with some of the better classes, mostly relying on Secret Paladin, because the traditional aggro Paladins are also rarely going to suffer from Divine Favors loss. That could be the one big loss to Paladin that I'm slightly underrating when I look at the Secret Paladin case in particular. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitch, just give a shout out and chat. And if you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at @dev_gaming. Or if you want to give any feedback, you can give it there, or in the comments section on the YouTube videos if you disagree with anything I've had to say. Next up, we have Priest. So keep watching to find that out. Or if you're watching this on YouTube and not all of them are up, check out my Twitch channel, which is also twitch.tv/dev_gaming, and that's where we'll continue recording the next set of them if they're not all up at the time you're watching this.